So welcome back to another episode of Out of the Bubble podcast. My name is Rachel Peru, and today I'm going to be joined by Caroline Gray. Caroline is another lady that I've met on social media through Facebook, and she has really quite a story to tell about overcoming some huge life hurdles. Again, at age 39, she lost everything. And how do you pick yourself up and stay positive and rebuild your life to now living a life in her 50s that she's absolutely loving and is fulfilling dreams that she had as a young girl at 16. She's now doing it. So I'm really looking forward to listening to her story and her inspiration to you all to prove that it's never too late. And no matter how difficult times can be, there is a way through it. So grab a coffee and sit back and enjoy. So good morning, Caroline. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hello there.
How nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Another connection that I've met through social media, through Facebook. And there's so many like-minded women out there that have got so many fantastic connections. I love it. It's really, really great to connect with people.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think it's also a little bit to do with our 40s and 50s age. I think I think there's a real benefit of being a teenager in the 80s. I do think that because we still had a lot to prove and break through the ceiling. And we were still, it might be hard for people to understand, and girls in their 20s now, that in the 80s, we were still not allowed to do certain things, being girls and stuff. So we were like the ones going there. And then we kind of disappeared, our generation disappeared. And I think it's now our time to come back. You know, we've been there, done it now.
Absolutely.
And we're not going anywhere. And I think for me, and you may feel it a little bit as well, is like you kind of, you did start to feel a little bit more invisible as you got older. I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm still here, I'm still relevant, I've still got a lot to do, and I've done a lot, you know, some good, some bad, but I've done a lot.
It's life experiences.
So it was really appealing, a podcast, you know, what you're, all wide types of women from different walks of life, but it's still that champion women, and come on, you know, we've still got a lot to offer and
Definitely.
a lot to do. That's a big link there you go.
Society kind of likes to tell us that we haven't, so it's great to keep pushing those boundaries, and it does feel like there's a real army of women out there that are kind of 40 and above that are determined to make sure they are visible, which is fantastic, and long may it continue. So for people that don't know anything about you, Caroline, how do you describe yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. How do I describe myself? I'm a positive person. I'm an Aries. I'm a doer and a positive person. And I'm a trier, definitely a trier. My husband says trying, but I'm definitely a trier. And I'm one of these people that give it a go and try, you know, and just do your best and things like that, no matter what it throws at you. A bit zany, I've been told, a little bit quirky, a little bit Marmite. Very Marmite, actually. Yeah, hey ho. And I own that now. I remember, like, it's probably come up about 10 years ago, wasn't it, that advert about Marmite, love or hate?
Yeah.
And my friends and people I knew started to refer to me. And at first I was like, oh. And I thought, actually, I'm going to own that. I quite like that, actually.
Yeah.
I love Marmite, by the way. I love Marmite. But the phrase of it, so that, a good friend. I'll always try to be, try and be there for people and stuff. But, you know, but overall, just get on with it. Just get on with it. Whatever it throws at you, even if you don't want to do it, just do it to your best ability. I'm that type of person, you know. And that's it, really. That's
fabulous. I love the fact that you're owning it. Do you think, because I feel the same now, do you think that as you've got older, it's been easier to own that kind of, not worry about what other people think about you, because you can't please everybody?
Definitely. And I think, you know, it's also important to think, when you get a little bit upset sometimes that people don't like what you do, don't like you, don't like things, you've got to, I think, instead of getting upset about it, because it happens, you've got to remember you also don't like some people, and you also don't like what other people do. And I think that also helps, that sometimes instead of getting upset like, oh, they took it the wrong way, or why don't they like me, you know, I'm like another friend of theirs. And I think, well, actually, to be honest, there are people I don't like and things I don't like, you know. And I think once you change your mindset into things and look at it from the other person's point of view, or the way and remember, actually, you are actually the same, you know, and I do think that does come with age.
Yeah.
And I do think with age, other things come, like you will say no. I think, because I was a great yes person too. I was probably about 40. I was absolutely, you know, partly because I didn't want to miss opportunities. Well, one reason, I really didn't want to miss opportunities, because I'm a great believer, if it's offered, do it. but also you just don't want to, again, going back to upsetting people, and didn't want people to think ill of you if you said no to something and stuff like that. So I think that comes with age. But I do think it's an age thing. So even if 20-year-olds are watching this and they're thinking, I want to change, you can still change those. But I do still think it does come a little bit with age, and going through experiences that add. Not to say there's certain things you could still change younger and have a different mindset on things, but that's the way I look at it. Yeah.
And let's, where do we start with your life experiences? Because you have had a roller coaster of a ride. I mean, I know we've got lots in common. You started modelling at 17, so you went into it young, didn't you?
I did. And I, unlike you, starting later, and it's fantastic to see a lady older and having the most brilliant career. I had to kind of stop at 24. We're talking the 80s still, 80s, 90s. So it's amazing and it's fantastic. And that alone proves there has been some shifts in society towards women, of age, size, because, when I was modelling, there's certain size you couldn't, you still had to be a reasonable size, and, there was still that pressure. And also I got to the point at 24 going to auditions, about 23, because I set up my first business at 23, and I was going into auditions thinking, oh, that was me. I was that young. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not, I can't compete with these 16-year-olds that I was once that 16-year-old. And I'm thinking, actually, do I want to? I've done it. And I was very lucky, I think, because there was no such thing, that I was a model in the 80s. And my goodness, did we have a blast.
Yes, yeah.
We had a blast. I mean, we used to have not just a job. It was still hard work, as you know. People who've never seen modelling or never been involved do think it's quite cushy, but and I
it's not as glamorous as people think.
It's not glamorous. A February swimsuit shot is not glamorous when you're the one in the sea.
No.
And the positions, I mean, they look fantastic sometimes when you look at a position in a magazine, but to get your body in that position and hold it, so there's all that to it. So, but I got to 24 and I was like, I'd done it. I was lucky. I was done it. And we were heading for a recession. It was early 90s by now. And there was a lot of companies sort of backing off, hiring girls. And I hate to say it, we used to get everything paid for. Everything. Hotels, everything. And there was a little bit of like, not quite as much as I won't get out of bed for £10,000. But I got to the point where actually I'm not doing a job, but they're not paying my expenses. I got so used to it, not in an arrogant way, but then you had to realise that would eat into your income.
Yeah.
And modelling is like, January, February, not March, August, not March. So a modelling, even though like you, it's full-time, I was full-time, it was still virtually, say, a 9-month earner, realistically, And
without the guarantees, without that financial security.
I mean, how many times have you got 2nd of Jan, you open your diary, it's completely blank the whole year, and you're like, I've got to work. And then somehow by mid of Feb, you can't fit anything else in. You get used to it. So it was a bit like that. But also it was a little bit of like, I've always like challenging myself. I mean, the modelling was a challenge. I mean, I came from a council estate in Tunbridge Wells and suddenly ended up in London modelling at some big places. I don't happen to girls like me, but because I put myself out there and went for it, I did it, and I had this real thing about London Bridge and Charing Cross Station. And I used to think, as I came into Charing Cross Station, as I went over the Thames, just as I went over, I was just Caroline from Tunbridge Wells, mum and dad cleaners, whatever. But once I got to Charing Cross, I was then the London model. And it was interesting. And also it was interesting because lots of my friends did say, why don't you come and live in London with us? Why don't you have the whole and I was actually, no, I need to keep my feet on the ground. And I needed that across the bridge. I needed it at night, and how glamorous it is sometimes and how fantastic it is. And there is a bubble around it, and there is like, you can get a bit carried away, but I needed that. I'm having a blast. I wouldn't swap it for the world. But to go over that bridge, to go back to somebody's house just to be Caroline, I think kept me level compared to what happens to my friends. So I was good. And 80s were still very heady days,
Yes.
And it was a case of like, I suppose people thinking I couldn't do anything else. And then and it was becoming the recession, and I saw that my work was going to slowly dry up more for lots of reasons, getting older, all that business. And I thought, right, I'll set up my own business. Simple as that, And I thought, right, what can I do? I left school at 16 and went virtually straight into modelling, so I didn't have any academic career then. I can cook, because my mum can't. I can cook. And I just thought, and there was an empty shop in a row of shops where I lived, and I thought, and it was a pizza place, but it had been closed for 2 years. And I thought, I'll open up a cafe. I was 24, no business experience, no family business experience, no one in business. And I just thought, and I had obviously my money, and I thought, you know, because I was lucky to earn well, and I'd put away, and I thought, right, so what am I going to do with this money? I can't just sit around waiting, I need to invest it. So I thought, I just went, do you know what? I'm going to open up a cafe down the road. And
Just like that.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
This has happened a number of times in my life. And everyone's going, yeah, right, you've never done that. I went, no, I haven't. And I tell you what, okay, this was 1991. The estate agent wouldn't talk to me. The landlord wouldn't talk to me. To get a solicitor, they took the mick out of me because I was 24-year-old ex-bimbo, to be honest. And that's what people thought. And in fact, I think that's changed as well. But when I was modelling in the 80s, it was still very much a thing. And I used to introduce myself. People go, oh, what did you do? And I go, oh, I'm a bimbo. And they go, why'd you say that? I said, because if I said model, you'd think that. And they would go, that was bright. And I actually and people change their attitude quite quickly with me because I'd say that. Because I knew if I said to them I'm a model, that I know what was going in their heads. So you might as well say it. And actually it broke the ice a number of times with a lot of people. You know, and so I just went, okay, I had to persuade the landlord. It was all my own money as well. Didn't any bank loans, nothing like that. It was completely on my own money. And he reluctantly agreed. He had a number of clauses in his contract with me that I managed to persuade him not to have, that he wanted because he was so nervous. And it took my time to persuade him not to have. I wouldn't take it on. So I did. I took it on. And I had held for 6 months by the local traders.
Really?
They were so anti me. It was the most unbelievable experience in my life. It was an empty shop in a row of shops. There was a few. Yes, I appreciate we're going into a recession at the time. It was the early 90s recession. And I know the other businesses there were suffering. But it was a row of shops where a lot of the businesses had been there many years. Some were like inherited businesses, like their fathers had a baker before and stuff like that. But and virtually all of them were owned by men. That's quite significant.
Yeah.
And they had a campaign, this is genuine, not to use my shop because I wouldn't be there in 6 months. Well, yeah, of course I'm not going to be there in 6 months if you're not coming in. You know, I'm not. So my first 6 months was absolutely devastating. I was like, well, what can I do? What, you know, I had to turn up every day. I still had to do it. I still had my own food. And I just had to put a smile on every day and just do it. And lots of things happened that 6 months. I actually caught people telling people not to come in. And I had a hairdresser next door. Hairdresser, perfect for lunch. He told his staff not one of them were allowed to use me. And it was like that. But then the 6 month period tied and it was like, oh, she's still here. Don't know how. I mean, I used everything to keep open. I was not going anywhere. You know. So I lasted those 6 months, and stuff got better, and it was quite interesting. And then I was suddenly invited to things, and you know, and stuff. And then suddenly the pub opposite me decided to do breakfasts because I did breakfasts, which was fine. I didn't mind that. But he was offering breakfasts with a free pint in the evening, and I can't compete with that. But he shot himself in the foot because he had to give somebody free pints in the evening. So that only lasted 2 months. So I hung on for 2 months. But sadly, I didn't get all that business trade back because I think they were embarrassed to come back to me. So I lost my business trade overnight because he was offering a free pint. And some did come back, but I didn't get completely. Anyway, cut a long story short, it was brilliant. There was amazing stuff that happened there. I met some lovely people. Some business they turned around, but it taught me a lot that even though you're a female with your own business now, you're financially independent, your own business, you set it up yourself, men still will not take you seriously. And and I thought, right, okay. And then what happened is I kind of did it to prove I could, in a way that I could run a business. So I did it. And I'd always had a dream. My ultimate dream was always to be a fashion designer. Always. My grandmother was a dressmaker. But for one reason, not at 16, I couldn't go to college for one reason or another. And so when I thought, okay, I did the shop for 2 years, proved my point. Yeah, it was there. And by then it was 94. So we were right in the heat of the recession and like everyone was having a real problem. And I thought, actually, I've done it now. I can do it. And I'm not very good at 9 to 5. Sorry, people that do 9 to 5. I actually admire you for doing it. I'm not very good at 9 to 5 every day. I need new challenges.
I get
Once
it.
I've learned something, I'm one of these people. Once I've learned something and I've done it and I put it in practice for a while, I'm like,
next, what can I do now?
What's in it? I need to challenge myself.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, actually, if I sold art, I'd have the money to go back to college, because obviously by this time I was 27, I'd have to pay for it myself. And obviously 2 years at college, full time. I thought, if I'm going to do it, I've got to do it full time. And I thought, right, okay, so I do that. And I kind of a little bit up, to everyone that gave me hassle of my business. And I don't, some of them sadly had gone by the time I sold because of the recession. And I don't wish that on anyone, don't get me wrong, I really didn't. But I actually sold my business within 6 weeks of the asking price in the middle of recession.
Yeah, which is really good.
Just thought, just because I had a good business. I stuck it out and I had a good business. So then I went off to college. Simple as that. I thought, right, done that. And the funny thing is about my business is that I didn't tell anyone. I was living at home with my parents, and I told no one it was on the market because I knew my parents would be looking into it. And I came home one day really early, and my mum was like, "Why are you home? What's happened?" I went, "I haven't got a job anymore." She's like, "Oh, what do you mean you got your shop?" I went, "No, I haven't." And she nearly collapsed. She went,
"Oh,
what?" And I went, "Signed the papers today, sold it." And they had no idea, because it happened also. I didn't expect to sell it in 6 weeks. I was hoping to sell it. And I didn't expect it to go literally in 6 weeks. And she was like, "What have you done that for?" She was like, she just didn't know what to do. And it nearly got to me, "Well, wait till your father gets home." And I was like, "Mum, I'm 27 years old with my own business. What do you mean? What are you going to do? You're going to send me ground me?" But she was like, "Oh my God." And then she was like, "Oh, right. Oh, okay. Now what are you going to do?" It was really quite funny. So that was, so then I went off to college and stuff like that. So, and then fashion. But when I come out of that, I didn't go straight into fashion then either, really. Life takes weird turns, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. You get sidetracked. Yeah.
So I ended up, this is really weird, I ended up in a relationship, and I ended up buying my old tea rooms and post office in the village I grew up with, again on a kind of a whim. Did that, and I had done a couple of properties up, and we were selling one, and we were thinking, right, where are we going to move to? And I just opened up the paper. This is so me. I opened up the paper and I went, "Oh, look, my old village tea rooms and post offices for sale." Yeah, why not? I've just finished.
But I love that. I love that you trust that gut instinct. I love that you've got that in you, that you can run with that.
Yeah, I just did. And we made a meeting to go and see it. And the ironic thing is when I went in, and they were in their 60s when I was a child, and that was my post office. But it was the same people. And they walked in, they remembered me. They was like, "Oh my God, how's your mum and dad?" And I was like, they were in their 80s. And I mean, I didn't expect it to be the same people. And they were so lovely. And actually, to be fair, the post office had been closed 2 years by then, because sadly, this is horrible, absolutely horrible. They were raided and they beat the old man up.
Oh, no.
And they couldn't reopen after that. And it's shocking. I mean, how he lived after that, I never know. But bless his heart. And so I was really going for the tea rooms. I thought, I'll go back to that. I don't know why, when I just done the fashion. Don't know. It's one of those things. And I was standing. So first of all, I just opened up the paper and see it for sale. Then I go along. And then I'm thinking the tea rooms, no problem. It had 3 tea rooms. It had 55 covers inside and another 40 out. So it was really quite a big deal.
Yeah.
And then I'm standing, and he said to me, "Actually, Caroline," he said, "can I ask a favour?" "No, and what's that?" He said, "The village really has missed its village post office." Now, apart from being a customer, I've never had a post. I've never worked in a post office. I went, "Oh," I said, "yeah, that is a great shame, isn't it? Especially as it's a real proper little community village."
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Would you open it up again?" And I went, "Yeah, all right."
You like a challenge.
And, oh my goodness, was that a challenge? Because what happened was, in one respect, and this was 90s, early 2000s, and at the time the post office were actually closing rural post offices. It was, so if one closed because sadly what happened to the couple that I bought from, the raid, it wasn't a big deal. So there's I'm suddenly knocking on the going, "Actually, excuse me, I want to reopen a rural post office." And they were like, "No way, no way." And so then I had to fight there and go, "Well, yeah, I'll put my own money in, I'm setting up, I need the post office, they're technical."
Yeah.
So that was another thing. And then it was in a listed building and we had to upgrade, and that was another thing, another fight. And Yeah, so that was, you know, so we got it open. So anyway, we got it open, everything. So tea rooms got open. Got the post office open first before the tea rooms, so because that was important to the village and the tea rooms. So we got the tea rooms open, and it was great. You know, it was a proper little tea rooms with bone china and homemade cakes that I made. My mum was my manager, and we had jars, and we were really part of, you know, a part of the community. Also is the fact that I grew up in the village, so people actually come back to see my mum. My mum was a massive asset in those tea rooms because everyone remembers her, and my mum's a darling. Everyone loves my mum. You meet my mum. I remember when I was modelling, I also used to do film and TV. And in Tunbridge Wells, it'd be like to my mum, "Oh, you're Caroline's daughter, aren't you?" And I was a regular on Noel Edmonds' house party. And I remember going into the BBC studios one day, and this guy comes up to me and goes, and this is what my mum, because my mum worked in theatre as well. Both my parents worked in theatres and on the caretaker and cleaner side. And this guy come up to me and went, "You're Dawn's daughter, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And usually it's the other way around. And I went, "Yeah, I am." And he went, "Here, guys, this woman, if you're ever at the Assembly Hall in Tunbridge Wells, oh, you've got to check out her mum. Her mum's ace." And it was really lovely. I'm in BBC Shepherd's Bush, you know, to do Noel Edmonds. And this guy's telling the whole crew that if you ever do a job at Panto or anything in Assembly, you've got to check out Dawn. Her mum's the best, you know.
That's
and it was
so
really,
lovely.
It was just, I was quite choked, and it was like, and I was like, it was just so funny for me to be my mum's daughter instead of my mum being my mum, if you see what I mean. In Tunbridge Wells, it was quite interesting. So anyway, so that happened. So I had the tea rooms, everything was going well, blah blah blah. Was in a relationship. We bought it together with the guy I was with at the time. I did all the businesses were totally mine. We just happened to live in the property, but the businesses were completely mine. And sadly, after 11 years, the relationship didn't work. It happens. We were both, it wasn't one or the other, it just happened. Nothing happened like that.
So how old were you at this point? Late 30s?
I was 39.
Right.
Yes, it was 39. Well, just before my 39th birthday, roughly. And I was like, it was both, but it got to that point when there wasn't one thing, it was just one of the things. We both knew it, but neither of us would admit it.
Yeah,
you know,
I think that's very common.
Yeah. And one of you has to be brave enough to admit it one day. I didn't expect the fallout that happened, but, you know, admit it. And my decision come, I was in the shower one day and I was so depressed. I was so down. I was like, couldn't tell anyone because everyone thought we were this fantastic. We lived in this village, we had this beautiful house, with this business. We had it, you know, we had everything going for us. We'd like, you know, but between us, it wasn't good. It just wasn't good. But when we knew that, and one day I was in the shower and I had a massive clump of my hair come out. And I thought, through stress, this is alopecia. And I thought, and I've always had long hair. And it came out of my hand, and I stood in that shower crying, thinking, I have two choices here. And this is my split decision. This is what I'm like. I said, I either lose the man or I lose the hair. And I thought, I'm not losing my hair for anyone. And I'm not joking, that was it. I mean, it had gone beyond, and I had been toying in my head, how do I approach this subject? We're not happy, we need to move on. How do I approach it? And it was seeing that amount of hair in my hand going, I only have two choices, the man or the hair, and my hair's staying. And then I was the one that approached it, and oh my goodness, even though he wanted to as well, did he become the victim? Did he make everyone make him think I was the one that leaving? Oh, it was how I was the nasty one. I was, how dare I had his friends phone me up going, Caroline, can we talk about this? How devastated. I said, it's not devastated. He'd already signed up for a dating agency.
Oh, right, okay.
But he was like, oh, she's left me after 11 years, everything we've been. And I was like, no, that's not what, come on, be fair about it. Anyway, so we had this property, had everything, when my money went there and everything. And there's one very stupid legal reason why I wasn't legally entitled to anything. And so at 39 years old, I lost my home, I lost my business, I lost my money, I lost my friends, everything. 39. I've been working since 16 years old. I'd funded all my businesses myself. I funded the properties that I'd done up myself, everything. And suddenly I was in a situation where I had hitting 40 with nothing, absolutely nothing. Let me take my debts, you know, you allowed me something. You know,
that's nice, It
was nice. Well, no, to be fair, if they're my debts, they're my debts, aren't they? You know, your credit cards are your credit cards. And all I had was my personal belongings, literally took nothing from the house. and my personal belongings in my car. I had to get a different car because we had, and that was it. And at one point, it was like I couldn't even go home to mum and dad's because they didn't have room at the time. Then my brother had moved back in, whatever. I had approached the social to see if I can get on the waiting list, and they went, not even a cat, in no way. You put your name down, but I'm the lowest form on the bottom of the list. A woman told me I am female, I am childless, and I am not in Diane, anything. She said, actually, a single male would get a property before a single female. So that was quite fascinating. And she said that, and I went, okay, fair enough. And it was just about to get to the point where I was sofa surfing, 39 years old and sofa surfing.
And you strike me as somebody that is, from listening to your story, you've always been very positive and taken decisions, really kind of reacted to things very quickly. How do you pick yourself up from that, though? Because that's a lot to deal with. That's mammoth.
It was, because also it wasn't just that. It was people's attitude to me. I suddenly didn't have the money. I suddenly didn't have the car. I didn't have the house. So it wasn't just losing that. It was losing identity as well.
Yeah.
And I had to keep hold of that identity. And it was a complete, right, how can I put it? Losing everything wasn't my fault in any shape, form, or whatever. It wasn't. But I'm also not going to be the victim. Losing everything wasn't my fault. Getting out of it is down to me. My situation I was in, I was completely innocent to how it happened. I had nothing to do with it. And I thought, I have two ways here. I either sit and feel the victim, oh my God, look what he's done to me, slag him off to my friend, everyone, and like that. And I thought, no. I've now got to get myself out of this situation. And it took a lot, the things I had to do. And it took me 7 years to pay off all my debts, 7 years to actually have money in the bank, and 7 years before I could actually decide to have a job that I wanted to do, or something I wanted to do, because at the time you did jobs. And at the time, trying to get a job was hard because he was bad-mouthing me around. I lost 2 jobs.
That's the thing, living I live in a small community, and everyone thinks they know everybody, don't they? The word of mouth is everything in a small community. Really.
Exactly. And I refused to badmouth him because I'm not going down to that level. I'm not going down to that level. He knows, and I know deep down in our, old age pensioner days when we're sitting in the care home, he knows and I know that he threw me in the gutter, and that's quite how it was. He threw me in the gutter. And ironically, when I met him, he was a recovering bankrupt. He got to that stage through me. This is, and I just thought, don't go there. So what you do, you work. I didn't sign on. I did not sign on. I thought, that's the other thing I'm not going to do. This is my issue, no one else's issue, not society's, not the taxpayer, no one. This is my issue. If I have to go cleaning, if I have to go waitressing, I will do it. And that's what I did. Also, I was lucky at the beginning of 2000s, credit cards were doing a lot of 0% interest transfers. And if you play the game right, you can do it with no paying interest. Even if I was using one card to pay that monthly, for a while I did have to really tighten, the debt was there, it had to be paid. But obviously, as long as you paid the monthly minimum, you didn't get added interest. So even if I took cash from one to pay the minimum on that one, it was still. And the weirdest thing, the one thing, I lost everything, absolutely everything. I can't even begin to tell you what I lost. And the one thing I knew I couldn't lose was my credit rating. I knew to get back on my feet eventually, the most important thing down the road when all this is over would be my credit rating. And I held onto my credit rating like no one's business. It was the weirdest thing to think of, but that's what got me through. And it was just realizing that this, you didn't put yourself here, but you and you alone can only get yourself out of this. And I think that, and actually it's weird at this time we're in right now with this pandemic. And sadly this year, so many people are going to be losing their jobs in their homes. And they are going to be in a very similar situation that I was, at 39, 40. And it's hard. It is hard. But you have to sacrifice. Like going to a pub with my friends, I told them not to buy me any drinks because I couldn't afford a round. And pubs aren't allowed to refuse you a glass of water. The only way I could go out with my friends was I had a glass of water. And that was it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to go out. I couldn't do it. I'd walk. Everything. Every ounce that I could save a penny, but still try. And that also helped me. I had to find ways to still have parts of normal life, like going to the pub with them.
Yeah, and keeping those connections with people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the ones that did stay friends.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was ways like that. I mean, there were so many things I did to get out of it. So many things I did to get out of it. And also keep it all legal.
Yeah.
You know, all above board, all legal. But my main thing was, I'm not signing on. It's my issue, my problem, and I need to keep my credit rating. But it is soul destroying. You do things that you don't want to do, or you never thought you'd have to do. But you've just got to keep. But every time that bet's going down and down, and it's hard. 7 years is hard to live with the debt and live that way for virtually 7 years. It got better by probably a year 4 or 5. It got a little bit easier, but you know. But the only way to get through it is you have to stick to that plan and get through. And I'm afraid, and I am very. It's worrying that I know over the next year or two, so many more people are going to be in that situation. And if today this interview, just with this, that's why I kind of told you my story. It's not so much to tell my story and what I did, is to say, I know, we all know in the next year or two, this is going to happen to a lot more people for totally different reasons. But again, not their fault. And I think everyone has to remember that as well. You know, whatever happens to you in the next year because of this pandemic, it wasn't your fault. It has nothing to do directly with you. But you do still have the power, even when you feel completely and utterly powerless. You do have the power to get yourself out of it. It will be a lot. I'm not going to sugar the pill. It's going to be a long, hard journey. And there's times when you want to buy that cappuccino, you want to buy that magazine, you want, but you can't. You can't. But it took 7 years, but then here I am at 50.
Doing what you love.
Able finally at 50 to turn myself into a fashion designer. And then at 52, it all stopped because of the pandemic. But that's another story.
But it will continue. And that's, so what point did you have that moment where you thought, actually, I am going to return to the thing that I've been passionate about all my life since a young girl. I am going to make this work. So what point did you make that decision?
Right. I would say at something really random happened, that an ex-boyfriend from my 20s suddenly sent me an apology after 18 years for the way he treated me 18 years beforehand. Yeah, completely out of it. He remembered my birthday. He sent it on my birthday. He remembered my birthday.
That's dedication.
I know. It was like shock. 2013, I suddenly get a David Bowie CD in the post, which, you know, anyone knew that birthday I would have wanted it. It was the Black Star one, the new one he bought out after years. And a complete apology. And I was like, wow. And at first I was like, oh my God. And he was like, you know, it wasn't a very good breakup. It was a 20s breakup. He hadn't grown up and stuff. Well, he still hasn't, but there you go. But he hasn't grown up and stuff like that. You know, it was one of those things. And at first I was like shocked. And the letter wasn't for me to get in contact. It really wasn't. It was a genuine, heartfelt, oh my God. I found out later he was going through a rough time, and somebody said to him, to help him get out of a rough time, when was the last time he was truly happy? And he said, the last time I was truly happy was when he was with me. And he blew it, and that made him write the letter. And then somebody said to him, why don't you, to get it off your chest, obviously she's probably married, kids and all that business now, 18 years later, why don't you at least say that, so at least you've said it? And so basically, cut a long story short, so he did. And I wrote back because one, he didn't say why he dumped me so dramatically and for no apparent reason. And also, to be honest, he'd spent 15 quid on me. He bought me the CD. He put it in the pub. You know,
that doesn't happen.
I can't thank him. I've got to at least thank. So I did write back. Luckily, he had a return, because he did it recorded delivery to make sure I got it. He had put his return address, because in the letter there was no contact. So that was really handy. So I sent it back. Anyway, so we ended up getting in contact. He phoned me. We went through why it was, what it wasn't, then spoke about our lives. So that come on the 18th of March, the CD, and my birthday was 23rd. So got that. I spoke to him 2 weeks later, and he lived in Dorset, where I live now. He lived in Dorset. So that come, and then so on the 18th of April, so the 19th of March was the first time I heard from him all that time. 18th of April, I decided to come down here to Dorset to meet him. Because once I found he was just stupid 27-year-old lad, you know. And my friends were going, oh my God, why are you going all that way? You know, you should get him up to Tunbridge Wells. I went, no, Tunbridge Wells, and I don't want to know him. I can't get rid of him. At least Dorset, I can say I've got the long 150, mile drive back, you know. And they were like, okay. So I came down on the 18th of April, 2013, and we got engaged on May the 26th, 2013.
That's amazing. You do just follow your gut instinct, don't you?
And then and we got married 2 years later on the 18th, the first day we met up, 18th of April, because it happened to fall on a Saturday 2 years later. I then moved to Dorset from Tunbridge Wells. I born and bred Tunbridge Wells, everything I'd done in Tunbridge Wells. And I moved to Dorset 3 days before my wedding. Didn't live down here before. And I'm down in Dorset. And so I've had to give up everything I was doing in Tunbridge Wells. And it was like, now what do I do? You know, I'm suddenly here, back on my feet. All my debts have been paid off, everything, and I'm back on my feet. What do I now do? And I had a bit of money in the bank and stuff. And to be fair, it was Nick who turned around and said, why don't you just do your fashion? He said, just what you've always wanted to do. And I was like, actually, you've got a point there. And he said, no, just do it. And I was like, oh, bless your heart. You know, he said, just do it. And I was like, okay. And I thought, well, okay, I had a little bit of money, but not enough to do full clothes. Yeah. So that's why it's accessories. And now, but funny enough, coming out of the pandemic, I'm going to do more clothes. The pandemic, like for a lot of people, have made you think and stuff. And basically that's how it was. It was him. And then it happened. We were discussing it at 49. Actually, that's ironic. I've just realised that was 10 years after losing everything. Yeah. I never thought that before. Yeah. And obviously my 50th was coming up. And I thought, actually, do you know what? Yeah, why not? So that's when, and that's why also the business is called 1968 Accessories, because of the year I was born, the 50, and that's it. And so that is how I've gone completely from being homeless, and I was homeless, to no money and no help, to suddenly being able to set up my business as a fashion designer. And I have to say, my first year was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I was over the moon. This time last year, you wouldn't believe the events I was booking in for 2020. Yeah. But hey ho, you know, we've all gone through it.
You've just got to trust that process, that it will get back to what it was at some point.
That's it. And as you said, you know, I am a whimper. Like I think I put in my brief about walking the South West Coast Path. That was done on a whim as well. Yeah. And, you know, I'm just one of those people, you know, but I don't regret when I do it. They might not necessarily be the outcome you wanted, and some of them haven't. Obviously, I didn't expect to take T-runs and be in the situation. Yeah. But I haven't regretted one of my flip the coin decisions. Yeah. I've never regretted one of them. Never.
And lots of people really struggle and put barriers up for themselves about decisions because of the fear of failure and fear of things going wrong. And so what would you say to them? What advice would you say from your experience of just going for it?
One biggest thing, I think you never regret the things that you did. You only regret the things you never did. And I think and I'm always a great believer in, okay, you want to do something, right? Yeah, it's hard. It's out your comfort zone. You've never done it before. You might have to train for it. No one believes you can do it, because the interesting thing, virtually every stage of my life, no one thinks I could do anything. Quite interesting. And I just think you have to sometimes think, okay, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? And I think that is the biggest thing. Yes, you're fearful now. But actually, if you put everything in place, research. I'm a great researcher, right? Everything I do. Now, a lot of people think I talk off the cuff, and I do to a point, but I don't tend to open my mouth until I've done my research on things. Because also, in between all this, I've also been a borough councillor and a road safety campaigner, big time. Yeah. And, you know, which led to press and stuff like that. But again, I spoke on the subject when I know that. So really research what you want to do. You don't have to tell anyone. Keep it to yourself. I think that, and I've always done that as well. Like I told no one about my shop or anything. I think, first of all, because I think what happens is when you want to do something, and it could be a sudden light bulb moment. It might be not like me, my dream from a child, want to be a fashion designer. I didn't know I was going to end up being, I never thought I was going to be a postmistress. I just said yes, you know. But I think, first of all, what I would say to people, where other people say discuss it, I say don't discuss it. Because you don't want your mind filled with other people's opinions. Yeah? Because other people's opinions can be important, but they don't live your life. They're not ones living your life. They're not the ones that go to bed at night and have to sleep. It's not their life that you will be living. Yes, they can. So I do think you kind of need to, as much research, speak to maybe people you don't know who are in that field that you want to go into, that don't know you. But I would get as much information together, much as knowledge, work out, have a rough work out how you're going to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect before you start to mention it to your nearest and dearest. Because I find mostly nearest and dearest try to put you off.
Yeah, because it's coming from a place of fear again, and they almost want to protect you from failure, and actually because they're putting that assumption on them because of their own insecurities about making decisions like that. It's nothing to do with what you're planning to do. It's actually about how they're feeling about what they're doing quite often. So that's really good advice.
And that's my point. You see, it's not their life.
Yeah.
And I do think we have to be very careful to not reflect our life on other people's lives, because we are not the one that has to go to bed at night and sleep.
Yeah.
You know, and that's also what I look at. Can you sleep at night? How are you worried what people think? If you talk to people and it's on your mind and it's not, then do you know what I mean? It just interferes with your process. And go with your gut. I think I've kind of proved that I kind of go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love that about you.
I just literally, you could say something to me now and I go, do you know what? That's a great idea. I'm going to look into that one. Or I see something go, actually, yeah, why not? Why not? And, you know, my mum's a great supporter because she's obviously had me for nearly 53 years. And she's like, she actually said to me once, it's hilarious. I come from a very normal working class, typical background. Nothing, you know, both my brothers and my sister had the typical leave school, have a job, get married and have kids. Nothing more than that. And I'm the best aunt in the world. I have the most amazing nephews and nieces, and I'm their aunt. I hold the crown for the best aunt in the world. And they've done that. So there's me. And my mum has sat there and I've caught her looking at me and going, oh, and she goes, I'm sure I took the wrong baby home from the hospital. I just don't understand it. And she's always supportive. Don't get me wrong. She's like, you know, whatever you do, yeah, that's fine with me. Because you know. She said, I don't get it. I don't get it. And she said, I sometimes wonder if you are actually mine. And it's that, you know, it's very amusing. So I would say to anyone who has either a burning ambition or just because they are going to have to change their lives from what's happening, there's going to be an awful lot of people that have had years of experience in a certain career or a job, or do you know what I mean? And over the next year are going to have to look at something completely and utterly different because the jobs are not in that sector, or there's too many people going for that job in that sector. And actually maybe that will maybe give you the advantage of a job as well, because some people will want to take somebody who's fresh to learn their ways instead of old ways. So maybe that is also an advantage. And I would just say to anyone right now, there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of free training on the internet, and if you're just toying at the moment, you haven't got the money, or you don't want to spend the money at the moment, which is fair enough. I advise anyone at the moment, keep your pennies at the moment, you know, where you can, because we don't know what the year's ahead. And somebody who's lived in debt, believe me, I know how to live like that, and I know what now I advise people to start holding back a little bit. But look at what you want to do. Google everywhere. There's so much free training. Yeah. And if you do a few, you get enough from each of that free training to give you enough before. I don't want to do anyone out of work. And if you can afford to sign up for their courses in a good course, go for it. But at first, get as much free training as you can. Use your library. That's a free source. And the information from books are more authentic than you get on the web, because you've got to scour the web a lot to know the information you've got is authentic. And books still legally have to have authenticity about them. So still use your library, get your books, make your own little plan, feel comfortable in yourself that, I think this is a route I want to take, before you start discussing the nearest and dearest. And then don't lump it on them like I tend to lump it on people. By the way, I'm doing this tomorrow. You know, by the way, I've just bought business. By the way, I'm just going to walk 630 miles to the West Coast Health Path. We're just going to do that. You know, I'm that type of person. But partly because that's me, and partly my friends know and they kind of expect that from me, so it's not unusual. But if it's not normally your character, start dropping hints, like if you see something on the telly relevant, and go, oh, that'd be quite interesting, just so it starts in their head. Because if you suddenly drop a bombshell that you're going to change your life totally or career totally, the first thing they're going to say, don't do it. And all that confidence you started to build up wanting to do it will be shattered straight away.
Yeah.
Straight away, you'll be like, oh my God, I was wrong. I've just spent 2 months putting it, I'm wrong. That was what will happen.
Yeah.
And as you said, Rachel, you're right. It's only because they're worried for you. It is true. But that's not how it makes you feel. You'll suddenly think, no.
Then you start doubting yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, straight away. And you don't need that at that early stage. So I would suggest do as much insert yourself, as much inner to you feel comfortable enough that I want to do the next step. And then start dropping hints and like leaving pamphlets around, just do that. And then slowly build up. And at the time you still build, and then go, actually, do you know what, guys? We've seen it, and then approach it like that. And then you'll still probably get, whoa, I don't know. But it won't be such a definite, no way, you're not doing that. And obviously, if you're in a couple, no matter what type of couple you are, if you're in a couple, that there is, considerations and compromises. And if you've got kids as well. So I think that's another reason you don't want to worry them unnecessarily. You're going to do a complete life pivot without having enough information to actually put them at ease as well. And go, look, okay, I know you're worried, I understand that. But actually, look, I have looked into it and like just start in this. Do you know what? So you've got evidence to prove to them instead of just going, not like I do and just go, yeah, I'm just doing that tomorrow.
But you have showed us though that you can get yourself out of really difficult situations, and you can overcome these hurdles, and you can create the life that you really want to live. That's an amazing way to end the story, because it's such a positive up note. How can people find you, Caroline, on social media?
Well, on social media, you can find, I have an Instagram, it's 1968 Accessories is the fashion one, but for a general one is Images Red, because I love red. I love red. So Images Red is probably the easiest one with just the basic everyday stuff. And thank you very much. I appreciate that. And and just good luck, everyone. Good luck.
Yes. So my last question that I ask all my guests, because women are notoriously bad at accepting compliments. If you were to pay yourself a compliment, what would it be?
I'm a doer. I'm a no matter how bad it gets, I will get through it. And I'm a glass half full girl. And I've been told that enthusiasm is my middle name more than once. And I think that, and loads of people said, enthusiasm, that has been said to me, enthusiasm is my middle name. And even for the dark days, they do, you're allowed to have dark days. Can I just say that as well to people? Please don't feel bad on having dark days. Please don't ever feel bad that you're not feeling it, or you're feeling you can't you will have days when you feel this is never going to end. But believe me, after 7 years of everything I've gone through, and the little bit I've told you, through that 7 years, we had other tragedies going on that I had to deal with, court cases and everything. Well, I've told you only a tiny fraction of what I went through in 7 years. It will end. You might not know the end result, and it might be completely different, but you will get through it. But you have to be tough on yourself. You have to just get through and allow your weepy moments. And get them done and over. But just don't make yourself a victim. Yeah. You're a survivor. Don't become a victim, become a survivor. And take your scars with you.
Beautiful way to end.
Help you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and connect with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you can build your fashion business.
2022.
Yes.
Here I come.
Exactly. Yeah. Lots of love. Thank you so much,
Thank
Caroline.
you very much, Rachel. Lovely to meet you.
And you. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. Well, thank you, Caroline, for sharing her story with me. What an inspiring woman. And I love the fact that she's now fulfilling her dreams of a young girl as being a fashion designer, to now doing it in her 50s, and after overcoming some huge hurdles, and not just debt. She had lots of personal other personal situations going on, including family members dying, and all sorts that we didn't have time to touch on. And so the fact that she stayed true to herself and followed her gut instinct through all of those problems and issues that she overcame really is a massive credit to her and a real inspiration. So just remember, hang in there. If things are really tough and times do get hard, this soon shall pass has always been a really great motto that I follow. So Please try and remember that. And I hope you found Caroline's story inspiring. I will be back next week with another inspiring woman for you to share. So have a great week.